She thought calling 911 would shut down my garage party. But seconds later, the police chief stepped out of the car. What happened next ruined her HOA power trip in front of everyone. From the very first day I moved into that quiet HOA-controlled neighborhood, I could tell something was off. It wasn't the houses. It wasn't the rules posted on neatly printed signs at every corner. It was her, the HOA Karen, the kind of neighbor who watches from behind half-closed blinds, clipboard in hand, just waiting for someone to breathe too loudly. She had an issue with everything: trash cans out 5 minutes late, cars parked half an inch over the line, kids laughing after sunset. So when I decided to host a small garage party for my birthday, I already knew her patience wouldn't last long. This wasn't some wild rave. No street takeover. No block driveways. Just music at a reasonable level. A few friends. Some lights in the garage. And people enjoying themselves on a weekend evening. But to her, fun itself was a violation. She stood at the edge of her driveway that night, arms crossed, staring like a security camera with emotions. Every laugh made her jaw tight. Every song felt personal to her. You could almost see her mentally drafting a complaint before the first guest even arrived. She had a long history in the HOA. Everyone knew it. She wasn't officially in charge, but she acted like she owned the place. She name drop HOA bylaws like they were federal law, constantly reminding neighbors that this is a quiet community, and that she was just enforcing the rules. But the truth was simpler: she hated losing control. A garage party meant people gathering without her permission, without her approval, and that alone was enough to push her over the edge. As the evening went on, I noticed her pacing. She kept checking her phone, walking back inside, then returning to glare at my garage like it personally offended her existence. That's when it hit me: this wasn't going to end with a passive-aggressive email or a warning notice taped to my door. She was building up to something bigger, something dramatic, something that would make her feel powerful again. And while my friends laughed, completely unaware of the storm brewing across the driveway, the HOA Karen made a decision that would change the entire night and instantly turn her from self-appointed enforcer into the center of a public embarrassment she never saw coming. What nobody at the party knew was that, while we were laughing inside the garage, the HOA Karen had already crossed a line most people wouldn't even consider. Instead of calling the HOA board, instead of filing a noise complaint like a normal neighbor, she decided to call 911. Not because there was an emergency, but because she believed the police would shut us down instantly and put her back in control. Later, we would find out exactly what she told the dispatcher, and it made the situation even worse for her. She reported suspicious activity, claiming there were unknown people, possible alcohol violations, and a disturbance affecting the entire community. She didn't say it casually either. She used the kind of tone designed to trigger a fast response. Calm, confident, rehearsed, like she'd done this before. She painted the picture of a dangerous situation unfolding right next door. All because she didn't like a garage party happening without her approval. The most shocking part wasn't just that she called 911, it was how smug she looked afterward. She stood in her driveway again, phone in hand, occasionally glancing toward my garage with a slight smile, as if she already knew the ending. In her mind, the police were about to arrive, shut everything down, embarrass me in front of my friends, and remind the entire neighborhood who really held the power. What she didn't realize was how serious a false emergency call actually is. Calling 911 isn't a tool for personal grudges. It's not an HOA enforcement line. It's for real emergencies. But to her, the rules only applied when they benefited her. She assumed the worst-case scenario would be a warning or maybe a small lecture. She never once considered that the consequences could flip completely in the other direction. As the minutes passed, the music kept playing. Conversations continued. No one panicked. But every time headlights passed by the street, her posture changed. She straightened up. She leaned forward. She was waiting for the moment when flashing lights would appear and prove she'd been right all along. What she didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have planned for, was that this 911 call wasn't going to silence the party. It was about to expose her behavior in a way that would leave her with nowhere to hide, and no rulebook left to protect her. The moment the police cars turned onto our street, everything shifted. Red and blue lights reflected off parked cars and quiet suburban homes, instantly drawing attention from every neighbor within sight. Conversations inside my garage slowed, then stopped. A few people stepped closer to the opening, trying to see what was happening without making it obvious. The music lowered on its own, not because anyone was told to, but because the tension suddenly became real. This was no longer just a garage party, it was now a police situation. The HOA Karen noticed them first. You could tell by the way her posture changed. She straightened up like she was about to be vindicated. Arms crossed tight, chin raised. This was the moment she'd been waiting for. As the patrol cars pulled up, she stepped forward confidently, already preparing to tell her version of the story. In her mind, the officers were here to shut everything down and prove she'd been right all along. Neighbors began appearing outside their homes, drawn by curiosity and flashing lights. Phones came out. Windows opened. Suddenly, what should have been a quiet night turned into a public scene. The garage, the driveway, the entire street fell exposed. My friends exchanged uneasy looks, unsure whether to leave or stay. No one had expected this kind of escalation, especially over something as harmless as a birthday gathering. Two officers stepped out of the first car, scanning the area calmly. They didn't rush. They didn't look alarmed. That alone should have been a warning sign to the HOA Karen, but she was too focused on winning. She immediately started talking, gesturing toward my garage, pointing as if she were presenting evidence in a courtroom. Her voice carried just enough for others to hear, filled with urgency and authority she didn't actually have. Meanwhile, the officers glanced toward the garage. They saw people standing peacefully, drinks in hand, laughing quietly now, clearly confused by the sudden attention. No chaos, no danger, no emergency. The contrast between what they were seeing and what they had clearly been told began to show on their faces. As more police vehicles arrived, the street grew silent. Even the neighbors stopped whispering. Everyone could feel that this situation wasn't unfolding the way the HOA Karen expected. Instead of immediate action, there was hesitation, observation, assessment, and in that pause, the balance of power started to shift. Because standing there under flashing lights, surrounded by witnesses, the HOA Karen was about to realize something devastating. This wasn't her moment of triumph. This was the moment the story began turning against her, and she had no idea how badly she'd miscalculated what was about to happen next. Just when everyone thought the situation couldn't get any more tense, one of the police cars stopped slightly farther back than the others. The engine stayed running for a moment longer than expected before the driver's door opened. When the man stepped out, the energy on the street changed instantly. Conversations died. Even the officers already on scene straightened their posture. This wasn't just another responding officer. This was the police chief. The HOA Karen noticed it too, but not right away. At first, she kept talking, still pointing toward my garage, still convinced she was in control. She hadn't looked closely enough to recognize the uniform or the insignia. But when she finally turned and saw who had arrived, her confidence cracked. You could see it on her face. The smile faded. Her voice faltered mid-sentence. For the first time that night, she stopped talking. The police chief walked up calmly. Not rushed, not angry. He took in the scene with one slow look, peaceful neighbors, a quiet gathering, and one woman standing far too close to the officers, trying desperately to control the narrative. He asked a simple question about the call. Not accusatory, just factual. And that's when things started unraveling. As the details were explained, it became painfully obvious that this wasn't the emergency she had described. No threats, no violence, no illegal activity. Just a garage party that she didn't like. The chief listened carefully, then turned his attention to her. The silence felt heavy. Neighbors leaned in without realizing it. Phones were still recording. Everyone sensed that something serious was about to happen. Her body language gave her away completely. She shifted her weight, avoided eye contact, suddenly unsure of which rule she wanted to quote next. The authority she pretended to have all night evaporated under real authority. The police chief asked her to explain exactly why she felt 911 was necessary. And when she tried to deflect, the chief didn't let her. He calmly explained what 911 is for and what it is not. That was the moment the power dynamic flipped. Publicly. Completely. The person who thought she was enforcing the law was now being educated on it in front of the very neighbors she tried to intimidate. And while she stood there struggling to justify herself, the rest of us realized this night wasn't ending with the party being shut down. It was ending with the HOA Karen facing consequences she never imagined when she made that call. By the time the police chief finished speaking, the damage was already done. The HOA Karen stood there in complete silence, her earlier confidence completely gone. The same neighbors she had spent years policing were now watching her get called out for abusing emergency services. No raised voices, no dramatic scolding, just calm, professional authority explaining, very clearly, that what she did was unacceptable. That alone hit harder than any shouting ever could. The chief explained that calling 911 for a personal dispute is not only irresponsible, but dangerous. Every false call pulls resources away from real emergencies. And as he spoke, heads around the street slowly started nodding. People finally understood what had really happened. This wasn't about noise. This wasn't about safety. This was about control, and she had crossed a serious line trying to enforce it. Her face changed color as the realization set in. The smirk was gone. Her shoulders slumped. She tried to say she felt threatened, but the words didn't land. The scene around her told a different story: friends standing calmly in a garage, neighbors recording quietly, officers relaxed because there was clearly no danger. There was nowhere left for her version of events to hide. Then came the moment she never expected. The chief informed her that the call would be documented as a misuse of emergency services. No spectacle, no handcuffs, just consequences. The kind that follow you. The kind that don't go away with an HOA email or a complaint letter. The kind that quietly remind you that authority isn't something you pretend to have. As the officers began to leave, the tension drained from the street. Conversations restarted. People laughed again, but this time, it wasn't nervous laughter. It was relief. The garage party didn't end that night. If anything, it felt stronger, united. And the HOA Karen. She walked back into her house without saying a word, blinds closing behind her like a final act of retreat. From that day on, everything changed. No more hostile stares, no more threatening notes, no more attempts to dominate the neighborhood. The power she thought she had vanished the moment she tried to weaponize 911 and failed in front of everyone. Because the truth is simple. When you misuse real authority for personal grudges, it doesn't silence people. It exposes you. And that night, the HOA Karen learned that lesson the hardest way possible. If you want more true HOA stories where power trips backfire, subscribe now, because there's another one coming you won't believe.